right. Thank you. Today, we're diving into what's really holding back your sales and how to fix it. Joining me is Mike Dowhan, one of our go-to suits when it comes to sales strategy and leadership. Mike leads our sales offerings here at the UpSuit Company, and today he's going to break down what's actually going wrong in most sales organizations and what to do about it. Mike, you're the founder of Bedrock Sales Strategy. You've worked with scrappy startups to $100 million enterprises. You've worked with dozens of CEOs to transform broken sales teams, and you create scalable, high-performing sales engines. So we're so excited to see you. And I have to say, Mike, you've helped me and my businesses. And what I love most is that you're a modern strategic sales leader, not just another sales coach. So Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Holly. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, okay, let's dive in. So for founders who don't know you yet, give us the fast version. Who do you help and what kind of results do you deliver?
So at Bedrock Sales Strategy, we help small, medium businesses, anywhere from pre-seed, pre-revenue startups, all the way through $100 million plus enterprises. At the end of the day, what we identify are the issues, the gaps that are preventing revenue growth, and really diagnose and put in the infrastructure, put in the strategy that is going to be resonating with the target audience, working on product market fit, helping go to market, but making the everything work in a sustainable and an aligned way. A lot of times what we see within companies is a misalignment between the service, the product, the client, the operations of the organization, and really taking a dive into what is working, what is not working, identifying those gaps, and putting in the appropriate fixes. Not every company is the same. As a matter of fact, no two companies are the same. And so to be able to diagnose and identify truly what is meaningful for an organization to get onto the path to sustainable and repeatable revenue growth, that's where we come in and put it all in motion.
I'm so interested in this diagnostic piece that you're mentioning. So I'm betting that sometimes you come into a business owner and they're saying, well, sales are slow, sales just aren't working, or any number of generic comments. How do you go from a place where you're coming in to really understanding how the business is functioning and what the opportunities are?
Like I said, every company's different, and really understanding what the gaps are. What is driving either misalignment? Where is sometimes it's even just the smallest adjustments in an organization can truly make a difference. And ultimately, just given a situation and what we would call a symptom isn't always the way to diagnose. At the end of the day, just like a doctor asks a lot of questions, tries to understand what are the symptoms, how long have these things been happening, what are some of the causes. That's very much what I do when I go and I diagnose an organization. Truly need to understand what is working, what is not working, and where the pieces maybe aren't fitting together. And so just the same as every organization is different, every cause of revenue stagnation or inability to grow could be different. And so ideally, I don't come in with the answer. And that's just not the way it's going to work. But I come in knowing how to diagnose and figure out what's going on, and then to put the right prescription together in order to put the long-term fix in, and then return the organization on the path to growth.
Yeah, I love too what you said about sometimes even small changes can make all of the difference, because it really is like, okay, you're tried and true, you've done this before, you know how it goes. But sometimes as business owners, like we just don't see what that small change is. So even like getting that new process or making that new hire can just like launch your business. So I love the promise in that piece. Let me ask you, how do you move from diagnosis to real sales traction? Like, how do you go from looking at these problems to mobilizing a team or putting a fix in place?
So in our process, going from the assessment and the diagnosis phase truly just lays out what is, the greatest challenges for the organization. But the key for the way that I address and the way that we address the diagnosis is really looking at the prioritization. And having seen patterns in the past and having seen these issues in several organizations before, can start identifying what the future, is going to look like if these problems persist or if these gaps are not addressed. And so being able to look at those and identify what should be addressed first to make the most beneficial growth or the most benefit to the organization is pretty much the way that we get started. You know, what we don't want to do is have an organization have to wait 3+ months to see incremental change. This sales gap analysis truly allows us to identify what are the biggest squeaky wheels and to start getting in and fixing initially and making incremental changes over time. There's no reason to wait for a big bang. There's no reason to wait for the entire strategy to be fixed or the entire infrastructure to be built. There are things that can be done incrementally, and sometimes those are quite effective early on. And then we repeat, we grow, we incrementally tighten up some of the processes, we address the issues that are maybe further down the priority list, and ultimately we start this momentum of the machine really improving and getting getting traction under itself and really building a sales system that's really going to perform in the future.
I think that's incredible. I find myself often feeling like everything takes forever. It doesn't matter what it is. And I don't even identify that much with the driver personality, but I think, as CEOs and founders, we're driving ourselves batty, trying to move things forward, trying to get that momentum. So, you see this investment in a sales team or investment in any place of your business, and you really want to see the output. So I love your delivery focus. But I also brought you here to get some free advice out there for folks. So one thing I did want to ask you was, okay, so for the folks that are listening right now and they think sales are slow, what is something that you think that they could do to secure a win in the next 30 days? Like, what's the low hanging fruit or the change in mindset or whatever it's going to be? How can you help us sell more, do better, be in service to our clients?
All right, I figured you're going to put me on the spot there, and I will caveat all of this with it didn't break in a month, so it's unlikely we're going to fix it in a month. But you raise a good point. There are some things that can be done immediately that are going to help tighten up, start filling in some of those gaps that might be causing sales to either slip through. Many times you get that ghosting component, right? It's like, well, the client didn't call me back. I thought everything went really well. And so some of the mechanics that can be used right now are really looking at the current pipeline. Now, the pipeline, of course, is all the deals that you have active, and we should know what state those deals are in. And quite often, Holly, early on, just not knowing what a good sales process looks like, or even having a sales process, can be a detriment. And so really looking and identifying, okay, where am I in each of these deals? What have I done? And what do I need to do next? Oftentimes, the next step is such a game changer because it really helps you focus on how do I make progress on this deal rather than how do I close this deal immediately. How do I make progress? How do I get the journey a little bit further? And really understanding and recognizing where you are with the client brings alignment with the client's buying process, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. Aligns what you need to do next as a seller into fulfilling what the buyer's trying to go through in order for them to take the next step, and ultimately getting us to an agreement where we're going to swap services or product for dollars, or perhaps attribution, or maybe a webinar or something, right? There's something of value that's being exchanged. And for founders, that's not always going to be dollar in the door. Sometimes you want to get a lot of clients in the door. And so knowing what that goal is going to be quite vital, and making sure that you're progressing along those steps is going to be pretty game changing. So that's idea number one.
Okay. I love that one. I think there are also a lot of free tools to help, right? Like HubSpot, I think, has a free version where you can you can even spreadsheet track some of this stuff to see where your deal flows are, right? Like even something rudimentary, as long as you're paying attention to where your potential clients are in that stage, right?
Absolutely. I liken it to a GPS. All right. So for a GPS to work, you need to know where you're starting and you know where you need to go. Ultimately, the GPS will plot the course, and sometimes it's going to be pretty direct. Other times it's going to be construction. There's going to be turns, there's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be things that need to change and adapt. But ultimately, we're still trying to get to that goal. And so recognizing that process can help you determine, okay, this is what I've done. Now I just got thrown a loop, but I need to think about what I need to do next, because now it sounds like maybe I need to do a second demo, or maybe I need to bring in another decision maker, because now all of a sudden I've learned that there are two people making this decision where I thought it was one before. And so just being aware of where you are and what you should be doing next, just plot it out, right? You can do it in Excel. Put down the stages that you think you're at, build your awareness of where you are now, gives you that, recognition of what maybe I should be doing next. So it doesn't require big, huge CRM systems and large, elaborate processes. It's very much an awareness and really just, being determined on what you're going to do next.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What a great recap. And then I think you were about to give me something else.
So the other thing really is looking at your deals that are maybe the closest. One of the best practices is really how quickly can I get to this deal closing or a next deal closing. And so really looking every week at what deals are the closest to the pipeline to close, and what can I do on those deals to make sure that I'm moving those, because it's a lot easier, right, to take that one to the finish line than it is, of course, to start from A and go all the way to Z. So that's another tip that I wanted to give on there. Another area, if you're really struggling with, okay, what do I do? Look back at past leads, look back at past deals that maybe didn't close, look back at folks that maybe 3-6 months ago didn't respond, didn't move forward for some reason, because those people know who you are, right? You don't have to reestablish your identity. You don't have to reestablish the brand or what you do. Sometimes that is an area where maybe some neglect in the past has caused that person to ghost or to not be responsive. And all they were waiting for was for you to follow up with them and get back on their radar. We all get busy. We all forget. And all of a sudden you see that email or you see that newsletter, you see that LinkedIn post, and it reminds you that, oh yeah, that's right, I was supposed to do that. I remember being interested in it. I just got busy. Those are tips and tricks to stay relevant, to stay in front of your prospects and your clients. And so another way to sort of re-energize things is to go back and what you've already talked to, even if it was a year ago, because things change.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think sometimes we can get in our head about being a pest to someone, but I have totally done that exact same thing. I've really wanted something, forgotten about it. And then thank goodness that person came back to me, because I was like, oh, I really wanted to work with you. It just fell off my radar, right? And so not being a pest, just be persistent, right?
Well, and I'll tell you, the notion of being a pest really sometimes comes from not being prepared. And I'll go back to it, not knowing what your next step is. So if you're waiting, hey, just checking in, these aren't great ways to follow up, right? Add value, recap where we agreed that we were going to do as our next step. That type of reminder is going to go a lot it's going to go a lot further than just, hey, what do you think? And, just trying, that pesky behavior that, oftentimes salespeople get a bad, rap for, really just, the reputation just precedes itself. We don't need that, right? Sales is not about me. Sales is really about the client and their journey. And the more prepared we are and the more we understand what our buyers are going through, the more helpful we're going to be. We're going to be looked to for guidance. Let's remember that many times our clients have never purchased the product or service that we're offering. And especially for those of you that are innovative founders, nobody's ever purchased it before, right? So you as the expert need to help guide that prospect and that client of how to purchase your service and what it's going to do for them and how their lives are going to be different, how their businesses are going to be transformed or changed when they bring your product or service on board. And so as you keep that mindset, that servant mindset, it's going to provide better conversations. It's going to provide better feedback. It's going to provide better response rates from those prospects because you're offering and you're helping and they want to work with you.
Yeah, I love this. I love this as a mindset and almost as kind of a sales religion. I think you really nailed the description. If you were to recap sort of what you see as like a healthy functioning sales process or sales team? I know it's a complex thing and it's different everywhere, but what are some of like the pillars when you see something and you're like, oh, this is working well? What are some of the pillars that you're seeing?
So I look at the sales operating system almost like a factory, right? It's a factory floor. You've got inputs like leads and you've got outputs, they're sales. And really the predictability and the reliability of your sales operating system is really something that you can measure, you can look at. And I know there's a lot of discussion about, oh, it's just metrics and KPIs and numbers, and we're just measuring everything, and we don't have the ability to do that. But really what we're talking about from a measurement system is really about accountability. And so the components of knowing what my system is capable of. How many deals do I need to have in order to hit my goal? All right. Do I even have a goal? Right. Those components are vital because, again, remember our GPS from A to Z, like I have to start somewhere, I need to go somewhere. So we need to have a goal, and we can work backwards from that goal to say, all right, well, that goal is made up of how many sales roughly? All right. Well, it's made up of 10 sales a month. Okay. So in order to get 10 sales a month, I probably need to have more than 10 conversations, right? So 10 conversations turning into 10 closed deals is unlikely to happen. And so we can use some best practices, we can use some industry conversion rates, we can use some basic metrics to work backwards to know that if I ever want to close 10 sales in a month, I need to be having 30, 40, maybe 50 conversations. And at some point, you look at the capabilities and the capacity of your operating system, and you may determine, well, there's no way I can do that either myself. There's not enough customers out there for that to actually happen. And so maybe that's an issue. But ultimately, if you can start seeing the flow of conversations turning into new opportunities and new opportunities turning into proposals, or new opportunities turning into demos, depending on your product or service, those turning into proposals and closed deals, you can start visualizing that this system is working. You can see that I am going to hit my target next month, next quarter, because of the flows that are happening within my sales operating system. And that's an encouraging thing to know that something is working and that what you're doing is providing benefits, that you're on the right track. We're following our process because it's working. We're converting our clients because they're happy and they understand that they're being guided. And we're growing the revenue of the company according to our goals, because now we have something that's sustainable. And now if we repeat it, we can grow even further. And so that is the mark of your operating system really working. You can almost see, week to week, that these conversations, wow, look at that, those turned into deals and those turned into closed contracts. This is working.
I like hearing this too, because it affirms something that I have sort of seen play out. And I think this is important for, CEOs to know, it's not about making the next hotshot sales hire. Like that is not, hiring that hotshot salesperson isn't necessarily going to drive the revenue the way that you want it to, and maybe not as effective as just fixing the system, right?
I mean, at the end of the day, you talk about hiring a salesperson, and you're hiring a salesperson into what system, right? What do you want them to do? How should they perform? And a lot of the mistakes that I see, and I think a lot of people have seen, is that, oh, I hired the salesperson, they were a superstar and came in and didn't sell a thing. Well, there's a lot to be said about that. And a lot of that does come down to, okay, well, do we have a process? Do we understand enough about the value proposition that we're bringing to our clients? Does our client understand and appreciate the value proposition? And will they put money behind it, or will they change the way they do business in order to bring that value proposition to life for their organization? Are they willing to bet their career, their promotion? There's a lot of things that go into sort of completing that transaction. And for founders, a lot of this is going to be rooted in the passion that you have for your product or your service. And remember, you're the innovator, right? You came up with it. You know how to sell it, but nobody else knows how to. So instead of relying on a hardcore salesperson to come in and save the day, what truly needs to happen is we need to memorialize what that value proposition is, who our ideal customer profile is, what's the process that is working in order to convert those prospects into sales. The owner knows how to do that. The founder knows how to do that. And we need to teach somebody else. So we need to have onboarding. We need to have the process. We need to have the accountability. That is going to make the salesperson successful, not just raw talent and throwing them to the wolves at the end of the day. It can happen, right? You can get lucky. There could be an innovative product or service that somebody can pick up like that. They get it, they resonate, and they go out there and they hit it. But do we really want to leave that to chance? And the ability to allow somebody else to come in and sell for the organization certainly needs to be rooted in knowing what is the best practice, and that's our process. But ultimately, there are other things to talk about when it comes to whether or not I should hire a salesperson and when I should hire a salesperson. Not every organization has to have a huge team of salespeople. Not every organization needs to even hire that first salesperson, because remember, it's according to what you're trying to accomplish as an organization and as your goals. That may not require a full-time salesperson. Maybe it requires a better website. Maybe it requires some online ordering. Maybe it requires some outreach and some marketing messages and some outbound prospecting. But at when that comes in, maybe you still already have the ability for your internal people to do the selling. Maybe the founder can continue selling to hit goals. These are not foregone conclusions, which is why we need to understand what is it going to take to hit our goals? How many opportunities do I need in order to do that? And then let's look at how do we resource that.
Yeah. Well, you're taking me down this path. So I have to ask, what's the deal with AI?
Wow. AI, I consider, and I think we should all consider AI to be another resource, almost like another employee. AI is not going to solve everything, but there are several symptoms that AI can certainly help us with. And a lot of those symptoms are having to do a lot of research, having to do a lot of outreach that seems canned and not personalized. But at the end of the day, we need to have our AI to be as capable and as trained up as an individual. So all the things that we need to do to bring on a salesperson, and I talked a lot about it, right? I talked about the value proposition, the ideal customer profile, your sales playbook, right? What do we do first? What do we do second? What do we do third? It's not just your process. Process is part of it, but your playbook is really about the whole extent of that journey. And then how do we onboard somebody when we hire them to make them successful? All of those things need to happen with AI. And now when you've done that, you have an agent that doesn't sleep, right? Doesn't talk back. Although I've heard some agents actually do get a little sarcastic and snarky with their owners, but it doesn't refuse necessarily to do work unless, of course, you're asking it to do something it shouldn't. But at the end of the day, it retains everything you've trained him or her to do, and you can continuously improve. Right? There's still continuing education. Everything I've said we should be doing for employees already. And so if you miss that and we don't do that with our AI, we're going to actually go down the incorrect path. We're going to get suboptimal results. We may get the results that we don't want, but you can truly get an AI agent in there to understand who your target customer is, automatically go do some research, find out who those buyers are at a target company, get their email address, get their phone number, get their LinkedIn address, craft personalized messages to go out and reach them, and try to generate a response, a conversation, a lead, whatever your result looks like you want it to be, and do that at scale. I think that's very powerful, and I think that there's a lot of rote mechanics that we do spend a lot of time on as individuals and humans, that can be given to an AI agent to make us more efficient and to make us as individuals more productive.
Excellent. It's nice to know you're an expert at that too, because one of the things that I find is that I'm aware that there are tools out there, but by the time I learn how to execute, it's like, so I think having that advisory and having that ability to talk to somebody and say, well, what's really worth my time investment? What's really worth my money investment? What's the fastest way for me to stand this up? I think those are important questions, particularly around AI tooling, that I'm seeing CEOs and founders are frequently asking.
And let's tell you, Holly, some of the things that are vital for AI agents as well is context. And when I bring AI into my clients, I'm bringing a wealth of knowledge. My colleagues, that I bring in with me, bringing a wealth of knowledge of what are sales best practices. And just like I said, you would hire and onboard an individual to be a part of your sales team, and you should give them the training, the counsel, and the coaching that's needed. That same principle applies to an agent. And so if you're looking for an agent builder or an AI builder, somebody that has expertise and the repetition and the knowledge about how to build agents specifically for selling is going to be vital, because at the end of the day, sometimes your company reputation could be on the line, right? If the agent goes rogue and is sending messages out at a frequency that you're not comfortable with, maybe it looks a little robotic. You really just want to be careful and make sure that your provider has got that expertise behind it, and that they've seen, some of the challenges, and they know how to address them in advance.
Yeah, that's great to know, because I think a fear of mine and a lot of people's is, well, the message is still heartfelt. I don't want it to come across as robotic. I really do care. I really do, and so how do we get to that place where we humanize the AI as much as possible?
Right. And, at the end of the day, you don't have to send messages out automatically, right? There are pieces and components, and especially in a lot of the AI agents that I use, what's truly important is what signals is the agent able to identify, whether it's a competitor making a move, whether it's an order flow, or, visitors to a website. There are signals that indicate that there is intent out there for buyers. And the AI, the true power of what the AI is doing, is recognizing and understanding the context of that signal against your company and your value proposition to indicate that is something of interest. And so what AI is able to do is allows what seemingly would be noise to you and me, because it would be very difficult to sift through hundreds or thousands of signals out in the marketplace. But the AI now can take the context of what we truly value in our organization, prioritize it, and then give you back a list of prioritized either leads or messages to pay attention to now truly say, these are the 5 that you care about. That's powerful, right? I don't want to spend my time blasting out hundreds or thousands of emails. I'd rather know which 50 are the most important people for me to reach out to, because of what my signals and my AI agent has told me is vital to my success.
Yeah, and we're bringing more to the recipient of that, right? Like, nobody wants some generic spam. And so I think having that background research and truly understanding your clients is everything. So even just using, AI in the research capacity to help us bring better value is truly, truly powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, we have the information, right? It's documented. Let's put it somewhere and let's use it as a repository that says, okay, this is my company, this is my mission, this is my value, this is who I'm going after, these are our values. And that is truly going to help an agent go find people that are better aligned, and in prospects that are better aligned with what the organization is trying to accomplish. That's really what you want, right? Because at that point, you don't have to sell, right? And I talked about the buyer's journey. Selling is really about the buyer, as we've talked about before. And you don't have to sell anything. You want to be the guide, and you are bringing a solution to your client. And that's the kind of conversation you want to have. It prevents you from going down rabbit holes. It prevents you from talking to people and feeling that you're having to pitch them on something they are not comfortable with or they don't want. It's sort of that dark side of sales that we get sometimes a bad reputation on. But ultimately, if we can do a better job of alignment, then nobody has to have those awkward conversations, and we're truly helping each other out.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I can absolutely get behind that. Well, let me ask you one more. I'm going to squeeze as much free advice out of you before this is over. But what's one sales question you get all the time from founders, and what do you usually tell them?
Well, a lot of the time that one sales question is, well, how do I sell? And I mentioned it before, but I'm going to reiterate it here. It's not about what you sell. It's about how your customer buys. And that mindset sometimes really just is the shift about how you approach and how you go to market and how you organize your marketing, how you organize your messages, how you organize your organization, and who does what. And a lot of the time, from a founder standpoint, there's just not the awareness because of the training, right? And sales is not often taught in school. At least it is taught in school, but only if you go on the sales track, you take it. Many times individuals are brought into organizations, they start selling, they didn't have the luxury or of a coach or a mentor or somebody to take them, through the ropes of what the process and the science of selling is, and then the merging of art on top of it. And so when you change that question of, I don't know how to sell, how do I sell? The eye-opening awareness that I bring through a coaching session in particular is truly just about the awareness of what is going on and what selling is really all about. And at the end of the day, it is about the buyer. It's about what they're experiencing. It's about alleviating pain, and that is just something that we do talk about in the sales world. What is the pain and how do I make it go away? And if the solution that you're bringing to the market is going to alleviate pain and unlock potential, it's going to be a conversation that somebody's going to be somebody wants to have. The three principles that I would always bring to a founder or somebody that's really trying to understand sales 101 is why people buy. They buy to either make money, to save money, or to manage risk. Right? Those are three things. If you bring that and you think about that when you're approaching your client, your prospect, your marketplace, that then develops an understanding of how your product or service is going to transform your buyer. And that's going to give them a reason to continue the conversation and ultimately to make the purchase. So again, how is this company make money? How can they save money? And how would they manage risk? And if you are able to address one, two, or all three of those, now you have something worthwhile listening to.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. What a useful, I think I learned a ton. I know I learned a ton in this, even though we've been interacting together and you've been coaching me for quite some time. So for everyone out there today, if you want to dive deeper into any of the strategies Mike shared today, the best place to start is UpSuit Co. Just type sales in the search bar and you'll find all of Mike's packages along with free tools and tips to help you lead sales more confidently. And if you're not sure where to begin, we're here to help. You can reach out anytime at grow@upsuit.co or message us directly through the website. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.